everybody, it is Monday, November 28th, 2022. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Subway. Try the Subway Series menu, your pick of 12 irresistible subs. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio and the specialist, cast of dozens that help us put this show on every single day and every single week. So we are almost through week 12. We've got one more game left to play on Monday night. It's the Steelers and the Colts. And now that things are coming into shape, are we feeling good about our playoff chances this year?
Yeah, I'm actually having, I know people on listening to the podcast and on Twitter might not believe it, but I'm having one of my better fantasy seasons ever. I'm looking not only to make the playoffs in a lot of my competitive leagues, but I'm in play for the bye as well. So I'm happy right now.
Look at you. I think I'm about 50-50 in terms of making the playoffs and not, which, you know, it's always sad to not make the playoffs in a league, but it's also sort of refreshing to be able to, like, just click that one box and just like, that's one less lineup that I have to worry about.
Especially when we're playing as many as we
do. Right.
Do.
It's like, you know what? Okay, I'm hurt I didn't make it. But you know what? That's also one less lineup I have to worry about on a week-to-week basis. Of course, there's still a couple weeks left in the fantasy regular season. We're going to try to help you as best as we can make your way into the playoffs. And to do that, we've got our 5 biggest takeaways of the week. Waiver wire targets, got some Madden movers, and we're going to do another round of cap or no cap. And hopefully we can figure out which one is which, because I think the last time we sort of failed at that as a team here. But let's get started with some fantasy headlines. For the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers left Sunday's game against the Eagles in the third quarter due to a rib injury. A-Rod also dealing with a thumb issue. Now, Rodgers will undergo more tests on Monday, but said if he checks out fine, he expects to play in Week 13 against the Bears. Jordan Love came in and didn't look bad in the quarter or so that we saw him quarterbacking the Green Bay Packers. But if Rodgers does miss time, do you still trust starting someone like, say, a Christian Watson next week?
I do. I think I'll feel a little bit better about it if it's Aaron Rodgers, just because we know that those two have chemistry. Plus, Aaron Rodgers is still, last I checked, a part owner of the Chicago Bears, who they face this week, so that's a good thing. But even if it's Jordan Love, the Bears' defense has allowed a ton of production across the board, and Christian Watson's 63-yard touchdown catch this week, yeah, that came with Jordan Love, not Aaron Rodgers. So Christian Watson, who has the ability to win downfield, to win, we saw last night after the catch, to be a great red zone presence, I think you just start him week in and week out moving forward.
I saw someone tweet that there are really only 2 outcomes to a Christian Watson target. It's either a drop or a touchdown. Like, there's really nothing in between, and that seemed to be the case last night. And so I do think that the way they're using him, the way he's producing, there is still some upside there, even if it's Jordan Love starting at quarterback. The rest of the Packer pass catchers, yeah, it sort of remains to be seen. Down in Jacksonville, Travis Etienne left Sunday's game against the Ravens in the first quarter with a foot injury. Now, on Monday, head coach Doug Peterson said Etienne was cleared to return to the game yesterday, but the team decided to hold him out in order to not risk anything further. The team was planning to do more tests, but Etienne said he's fine, and the Jaguars agreed. So I guess this is a long way of saying that if you were going to load up and spend a whole bunch of fab on like JaMychal Hasty or Darrell Henderson, I guess don't do that now, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be spending a ton of fab to get them on my roster, but I do think it's a good idea to pick them up just in case, especially if you either have Travis Etienne or you're just a team that's been in need of running backs, because my takeaway from this yesterday was, like, Doug Peterson did the right thing. Doug Peterson knows that the Jaguars are not competing this season, and he knows that everything is about 2023 and beyond, and the rest of this season is seeing what they have in their young players. If they're taking this approach with Travis Etienne in a game like this, if he is to get banged up again, who's to say they don't take this approach again, or maybe tell him, like, hey, we know how great you are, sit down for a couple of weeks, or maybe they just say, hey, we don't want to give you this many touches each week. So I think it's smart to have a Hasty or a Henderson for very cheap just on the back of your bench.
Now, I know there are a lot of fantasy managers who don't necessarily share your level-headed view about the Jaguars and their prospects and how they're handling their players, but you're right. The Jags aren't really going anywhere. There's no reason to force the issue. I know it seemed a lot more serious because he left so early, and they decided to not bring him back. Plus, they actually won the game. So it also makes it really hard to criticize their actions when they figured out how to come from behind and pull out a win against the Ravens. So we'll see what happens this week. If Etienne plays, then he's back in your lineup. But like Florio said, maybe go out and get some insurance just in case something like this happens again. More running back news. Michael Carter did not return after sustaining an ankle injury in the third quarter against the Bears. James Robinson was also a healthy scratch from yesterday's game. Now, as we are recording this show, we don't know exactly what the status of Carter is going to be. We're still waiting on updates there. But if Carter does miss time, which of the Jets backs, because we saw a couple of them get in there, which one do you think is the most interesting for fantasy managers?
Man, I didn't know who this player was at this time yesterday. Zonovan Knight.
You had no idea.
Yep. On the fantasy app is Bam Knight. On our fantasy app, if you need to search for him to pick him up. But they made James Robinson a healthy scratch yesterday. And then in a game where Michael Carter only played 28% of the snaps, it wasn't Ty Johnson leading the way. It was Zonovan Knight who played 49% of the snaps, led the way with 14 carries, and led this backfield with 3 targets. He went for over 100 yards. Ty Johnson had a good game as well, going for 78 yards. I think Johnson is the deeper pickup here, but Knight, in a game where they were clearly searching for running backs, they felt confident enough to keep feeding him the ball. So if Michael Carter misses time, again, this isn't a situation, though, where I'm being very bullish and I'm going to spend a bunch of fab or be super aggressive to get them. But I think Zonovan Knight is worth picking up right now.
Zonovan Knight. I don't know what's better, Zonovan or Bam, because both of those are pretty good. But you're right. Yesterday, I'm scrolling through the box scores, just kind of keeping up with what's happening, and I'm like, who the F is Zonovan Knight? No idea, but he might be a name to keep out on the waiver wire just in case, and hopefully we find out more about Michael Carter at some point on Monday or maybe early on Tuesday so you can sort of make your waiver claims appropriately. Darnell Mooney is believed to have suffered a season-ending ankle injury on Sunday against the Jets. Now, there hasn't been a whole lot to get excited about in terms of Bears pass catchers beyond, say, Mooney and Cole Kmet. As you're looking sort of across the fantasy landscape, if people need a waiver wire option, and we'll get to it in depth maybe a little bit later in the show, but anybody immediately who jumps out at you as a waiver wire option at receiver?
If anyone does, it's Chase Claypool. He did win downfield. He had a really nice catch on Sauce Gardner, which is very impressive given how well Gardner has played this year. But this is, even if Claypool is the lead receiver here, it's the same thing as it is with Darnell Mooney. You're hoping for a big play. You're hoping for a touchdown. Otherwise, the floor is pretty low on a team that we know is going to run the ball a bunch, and also on a team that we don't know if we're going to see their starting quarterback again or when we will.
That's the big question, too, is when will we see Justin Fields again? There was that weird sort of 3-card Monty thing they were doing with Trevor Siemian and Nathan Peterman and who's going to start and what have you. So I am going to be kind of hands-off with Bears pass catchers at this point. I'm still in on David Montgomery. Beyond that, I would rather look somewhere else if I need wide receiver help at this point in the season. So those are some early headlines. We also have some of our own personal, editorials here. Our 5 biggest takeaways from Sunday. We always crowdsource between the two of us. So for you, what is the first thing you learned from what you saw yesterday?
I think Garrett Wilson can be started as long as Zach Wilson is not. And it's sad to say that we got to this point. But in the first 3 games of the season, Zach Wilson low point was 9.2 fantasy points. His high was 30. And then you look at all the games in between that Zach Wilson played, he twice topped double digits. And then Zach Wilson sits 26 fantasy points again. Like, there's that high ceiling from Garrett Wilson that we saw early in the year. And it's unfortunate for Zach Wilson that it's come to this, but it's not even the first time. Like, I found a tweet of mine from last year that said all Elijah Moore needed to be good was for Zach Wilson to not be starting. So that's 2 years in a row that his top wide receiver gets better when Zach Wilson sits. It's a tough pill for Zach Wilson to swallow, but it is exactly what you want if you have Garrett Wilson.
Tough scene, indeed. I know that Jay Glazer reported on Sunday that the Jets are going to keep benching Wilson until he gains confidence, which sort of seems counterproductive. I mean, it's, benchings will continue until morale improves. We'll see what happens, but it's nice to see Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore have some value. So from a current Jets quarterback to a former Jets quarterback, Sam Darnold has breathed some life. He has revived DJ Moore. I know it's only been 1 start, but I'm willing to go out and say that. Moore had his second 100-yard game of the season with Darnold starting at quarterback, and this was against a Broncos defense that we have been fearing all year long. It just seems the two of them have a connection. And you go back to last year where Darnold was starting and playing for the Panthers. Moore was averaging about 20 receiving yards more per game. He was averaging about 3.5 more fantasy points per game. Those are significant numbers. And so it just seems like Darnold and Moore have a connection. it's been a frustrating year if you've been starting DJ Moore, without a doubt. But it does seem like having Sam Darnold back there does make him a little bit more viable. We're not starting Darnold, but it's nice to think we can trust DJ Moore a little bit now.
Yeah, I think Darnold should start selling shirts that say, like, bleep it, DJ Moore's down there somewhere. Because he was just heaving the ball downfield and putting it up there for DJ Moore. And who knew DJ Moore can actually make plays if you give him a chance?
Wild. That's a wild, wild thought. Never would have imagined it. Okay, so we go from an old USC quarterback to you learning something about an old USC wide receiver.
Yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster reminded us that he comes with a low floor. And if you remember in the beginning of the year, Juju was struggling to the point where, like, many people were wondering if they should drop him, let alone bench him, because there was a bunch of games with single-digit fantasy points in a row. Then he had this hot stretch in the middle where he had 3 weeks in a row with at least 18 fantasy points, 2 of them going over 22 fantasy points. Then he got hurt, missed the game, came back, just 6.8 fantasy points yesterday. I know he was kind of limited, but this was still a game where Patrick Mahomes threw the ball a bunch. Like, he threw the ball 42 times, which surprised me against this Rams defense. I thought they would just run the ball all game. 42 throws, just 3 targets for Juju Smith-Schuster. That's concerning.
And what was even worse was that he didn't really play a ton of snaps. And this was on a week when he wasn't on the injury report. If he had come into the week questionable, we didn't know what his status was, that sort of would have made sense. It seemed like everything was right, but he just wasn't on the field a lot, didn't get a whole lot of targets. That is frustrating.
Do you think it was a case of, like, we're going to save Juju for next week against the Bengals, or is this something, like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this.
I'm going to say that they just felt like maybe we don't need a lot of Juju this week. You know, the Rams are just falling apart. I mean, so like they also go out and lose Allen Robinson at the end of that game because of a foot injury. It's just a mess. So maybe they just were saving him for down the road. Who knows? The offense for Kansas City is fine. The offense for the Baltimore Ravens looks like it is broken right now, and it is sort of a mess. Lamar Jackson ended up getting you about 23 fantasy points on Sunday, but that's because he got a late touchdown run, had about 80 rushing yards. But in terms of throwing the football, it's a mess. They don't really have a wide receiver they can count on. They're still waiting for Rashad Bateman, but 1 week it's DeMarcus Robinson. They're trying to figure out to get Mark Andrews more involved and get him completely healthy. Isaiah Likely was out last week. They can't run the ball efficiently or effectively. Gus Edwards was kind of a mess. It just has looked really sloppy for the last several weeks. And really, if you go back a while, Jackson only has 20-plus points twice since week 3. So this has been going on for an extended period of time. And I know we keep waiting for that big Lamar breakout game. And you thought it was going to happen yesterday. I sort of agreed with you that it would happen yesterday against the Jags. I mean, are we past time to be worried about Lamar? I mean, is there a corner that he can turn? Is it coming in the near future?
I don't know. I'm starting to think like this might just be who Lamar is, and he was able to put up a solid fantasy game yesterday because of what he does with his legs, and that's why I think he's always in play. But yeah, we're not seeing that consistent week in and week out big Lamar performances, and I don't know. Part of me is thinking that a lot of it is the lack of playmakers he has around him. Like, Mark Andrews clearly is not looking like himself right now. And you take that away, he's thrown to, like, Deshaun Jackson. So right. It's concerning at the very least.
Although we do know Deshaun Jackson can still beat you deep. Yes. At least once a game, Deshaun Jackson can beat you deep. That happened yesterday. So the Ravens' offense and their passing game can't be figured out, but maybe the Jaguars is coming together?
I think the Jaguars' passing attack is a thing. And for a while now on this show, we've both been high on Christian Kirk and saying that he needs more respect than he is getting. But then this past week, Trevor Lawrence had his best game as a pro. He threw for over 300 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns. It was his first career game, I think, with over 303 touchdowns and no interceptions. But he's been playing better as of late. He looks more comfortable in this Doug Peterson system. And what I love is Zay Jones is also a thing in this offense. Zay Jones yesterday had a 38% target share, 52% air yard share. He had 14 targets. It's his 3rd time in his last 5 games with double-digit targets. I think he's just getting overlooked. He needs to be picked up if he's still available in your league. Him and Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence, I think, are all in play next week when they get the Detroit Lions.
Oh, yeah. When they play the Lions, I think everybody is in play there. Just a little teaser. Zay Jones could find his way into the sleepers column next week. I'm just saying. Those are the things we learned. We got plenty more things that we saw on Sunday. We will dive into that when we come back with our top performers. That's next on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Take a look at the top performers for Week 12. Josh Allen at the top of the QB standings. Just a tick under 30 points for him. Josh Jacobs went kaboom. Over 300 total yards of offense. 2 touchdowns, including the walk-off game winner. 48.3 fantasy points. My goodness. Justin Jefferson doing Justin Jefferson things. He got you 29.3. Dalton Schultz having another good tight end week. Just over 19 points for him. Justin Tucker, 15 points with 4 field goals. Justin Tucker missed a 67-yarder, and we were like, wow, what happened?
I thought it was good.
Right? Everybody's like, I thought that was going to go through, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but that's Justin Tucker. And the Dolphins' defense just mauled the Houston Texans. 18 fantasy points for them. I don't know if you saw the quote. Somebody asked Brandon Cooks, when did you guys know you were sort of overmatched? And he's like, when we stepped on the field.
I feel bad for Brandon Cooks, man.
Man, it's been rough for Brandon Cooks. I should check his Twitter account, see if he's tweeting more cryptic things at this point. Let's take a look, though, and dive into some of these top performers. Josh Jacobs, man. And we've talked a lot on this show about how so many people in fantasy, us included, were off the Josh Jacobs wagon, right? It just didn't seem like the Raiders were using him. They had him play a ton in the Hall of Fame game. But you want to talk about a dude who, while he probably won't be the fantasy MVP, probably is going to be the biggest value pick in fantasy, and he just showed us on Sunday exactly why he could be a big value pick. I mean, this was just an amazing performance.
Yeah, and I mean, nearly 50 fantasy points. It's his best game of the season, but let's not act like this isn't, who Josh Jacobs has been this year. He's been an RB1. He's been up and down a little bit more the last month, but this is his 4th game with over 30 fantasy points this year. There's very few running backs who bring the same weekly sort of upside that a Josh Jacobs bring. And I watched this game very closely because I had a matchup come down to Josh Jacobs. Mm-hmm. And man, luckily I had Josh Jacobs.
I hope you were on the Jacobs side of it.
I needed a huge day out of him to have a chance, and he more than delivered. So, and every play was designed to go to him. So I feel like they should just keep doing this, especially since he gets the Chargers next week.
Oh, yeah, if he's getting the Chargers next week, he might end up being the RB1 in a lot of rankings against that Los Angeles defense. He's been great all season long, and anybody who drafted him, who took the chance on him, congratulations, because you end up with a great kind of a depth running back who's ended up being kind of an RB1 for you this year. You mentioned Zay Jones a little bit and that Jaguars passing game, and sure, Christian Kirk, definitely a thing, but Zay Jones, 11 catches for 145 yards. You can't start him every week, but when the matchup's right, maybe he's got some deep league attractiveness to him.
Yeah, I think people should go out and pick him up right now, unless you're in my leagues, because he's already on my rosters. Zay Jones is a player that...
Zay Jones isn't available in my league.
Zay Jones, though, he has been playing well. Again, 2 straight games with double-digit targets, 3 of his last 5 games. He is their wide receiver 2 opposite of Christian Kirk. I know Marvin Jones is still get his at certain times, but Zay Jones and Christian Kirk are clearly the top 2 pass catchers in this offense that they're designing a whole bunch of plays to. And again, next week they get the Lions. The week after they get the Titans. Those are favorable matchups that I think Zay Jones could help some people sneak into the playoffs.
And the best part of it is Trevor Lawrence seems to be looking more and more comfortable every week. He's getting a familiarity with that offense. He's getting a familiarity with his wide receivers. So things coming together down there in Duval. Kyler Murray, we know that he is good, but he just sort of reminded us, even though the Cardinals couldn't hold on and get the win against the Chargers, Kyler did his thing. A couple of passing touchdowns, also had a rushing score against Los Angeles. And I guess it's just a reminder that Kyler Murray, still good at football. What, is he a top 5 quarterback rest of the season?
He's definitely in the conversation. I would say top 5 for sure. Has Allen, Mahomes, Tua, I guess. Yeah, he's in the conversation. But the thing is, he could still get better because this was his first game this year with both DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown, and Rondale Moore was out. So now you factor in after their Week 13 bye, Rondale Moore's probably back. It's going to be the best assortment of weapons that Kyler Murray's had this season, maybe arguably ever. So I would say the fantasy arrow is definitely pointing up for Kyler.
And he's not going to have Zach Ertz for the rest of the year. So he's still never going to have his full complement of weapons. And just in case that's not enough for you, he reminded you he can still get out and run 56 rushing yards and the rushing score too. So the floor should be raising, the ceiling probably going up as well for Kyler Murray. So if you've been waiting for it, I think the Kyler explosion is coming. The Chris Godwin explosion finally came. We had been waiting for that for a while. 12 catches, $110, and a touchdown. I know it's going to be hard to count on each and every week, but at least for this week, it was nice to see Chris Godwin look like Chris Godwin again.
Yeah, and coming like last week, what I kept saying about him was like he's shown to be a very reliable receiver, but he hasn't showed us that Chris Godwin upside game yet that we've seen so many times in the past. Well, that came this week, 29 fantasy points, over 100 yards, second straight game with a touchdown. But what I love is since week 6, he has double-digit targets in all but one game, and in that one game, he had 8 targets. So he's looking a bit more healthy. He's finding the end zone, and he's getting so much volume each week that I think you just start Chris Godwin moving forward.
I think you do. Just look who his quarterback is. Look who that offense is. Look at the fact that he's going to get a large target share. And hopefully, again, I don't think you're going to get this sort of production. You're not going to get 29 points. But if he can get you, 15, 16 points a week, I think you're going to be happy with that. So those are the guys who were on the upswing. How about the guys who left you wanting more? It's our big disappointments of the week. And who let you down this week?
I'm not going very far from Chris Godwin. In fact, I'm just going to go on the opposite side of the field of him and say Mike Evans, who had 9 targets. And if you have Mike Evans on your fantasy roster, you got to be like 9 targets is all I can really ask for. Mike Evans didn't do a whole lot with them, though. Just 2 catches, 31 yards, finished with just 5 fantasy points. He's right now, I think it's 7 games in a row without a touchdown. It's the longest streak of his career. But still, I still think you have to start Mike Evans every week. But he's certainly been very up and down, and it's been frustrating for fantasy purposes.
You're starting him because the ceiling is very high, even though the floor has become a little bit low. I went and looked, and he's on pace again for another 1,000-yard season. I know it maybe doesn't mean quite as much when you have that extra game added, but it's just a consistency to Mike Evans year after year that at some point we just sort of take it for granted. I was disappointed by Jeff Wilson this week. And look, it wasn't totally his fault, but we came into this week thinking this was a huge smash spot, right? Raheem Mostert was injured, was not going to play. Wilson was taking on the Houston Texans. It's as good a matchup as you could imagine for a fantasy running back. He got you double-digit points, 12.2, but that was in large part because he scored a rushing touchdown. It was not the huge blow-up game that we wanted from Wilson. Again, it wasn't totally his fault. The Dolphins jumped out to such a big lead. The Texans were such a mess in this one that they just didn't really need him. But that doesn't mean I'm not disappointed because I thought more things were going to happen. I thought this was going to be a big number. He was going to get you 25, 28 points, something like that, and he got you less than half of that. So it's just frustrating. The process was right. The results were wrong just because things beyond our control happened. So that's just me complaining about stuff that I can't really do anything about. It was not a mistake to start Jeff Wilson, but we do have some rookie mistakes. Those are presented by Snickers. That's when we go to the Twitter machine and we see the things that you did that left you wanting more, and we decide whether or not you at least had a good thought process or if you were just completely scatterbrained and you deserve to be scolded. So let's start with this one. Grief Bacon 84, which is hilarious. Benching Brian Robinson. I mean, come on. How was I supposed to predict that? So is this user error or is there some merit to this?
No, I think there's some merit to this. This backfield has been insanely tough to predict week to week. Like one week it's Brian Robinson leading the way. The next week it's Antonio Gibson. And there's no rhyme or reason. Like last week was like, all right, if they're playing with the lead, it seems like they like to use Brian Robinson in those games. Nope, it was Gibson. And this week it was back to being Brian Robinson. I've settled at the point, Marcus, where I think Gibson and Robinson are both just weekly flex options that you kind of let the matchup determine if you want to play them.
So I'll say that I had Brian Robinson as a sleeper this week, but I don't fault anybody for not starting him. Just because, as you mentioned, it's been so inconsistent. It's been so hard to figure there. I could envision him having a decent game against Atlanta, but again, like I don't think that you were crazy because you decided to put him on the bench this week. It's not like you're not out there asking, should I start Nick Chubb? That's all I'm saying. Super Mario. Can't believe I'm saying this, but not starting DJ Moore. I benched him because you all know why. So mad I drafted that dude. Again, I get it. I completely understand that one.
Same. I had DJ Moore as a sit in my start and sit him article last week. And what I said was, I said that he plays better with Sam Darnold. This is a positive, but it is the toughest matchup for a wide receiver. And if he goes out and has a good game, rather than beat yourself up about it, you should feel good that, like, hey, I could trust DJ Moore the rest of the way with Sam Darnold. So put that positive spin on it.
I think that's the way to sort of look at it. And again, I don't fault you at all. I mean, he's been awful all year. They were playing the Broncos. Everything about this seemed bad. But maybe what we take away from Sunday, and that's what we talked about in the first segment, is that now with Sam Darnold starting, we can feel a little bit more confident in DJ Moore. So have faith, Mario. Maybe things are getting better. Ray says, benching Miles Sanders for Alvin Kamara at the last minute after going back and forth all week, and then a series of clown emojis coming at the end of that one. Yeah, I mean, it's Alvin Kamara, so I guess I get it, but Alvin Kamara hasn't really been Alvin Kamara this year.
No, and in fact, like, he gets the Bucks next week. I'd say I'll save you the time now. Go ahead and start Miles Sanders of those two. I won't beat you up because Alvin Kamara was your first-round pick, but, man, if we've learned one thing last night, and we already knew it, but, like, start running backs against the Packers.
Yeah, and this was a week that I was really worried. I was off of Alvin Kamara, but I was really big on Miles Sanders. But again, I'm not going to flame you too much for this, Ray, because I certainly understand the process, especially going back and forth. But I liked Sanders. Didn't really love Kamara against the 49ers this week. So that's kind of how I feel about that one. Last one, Haley, Gabe Davis. I'm so sick of the up and down. I will let you, as the Bills fan, handle this one.
I'm not going to fault you, Haley, because this is who Gabe Davis has been this year. Like, he's so up and down. This was a matchup an indoors against a Lions team that's allowed a bunch of production against receivers. I get it. They just didn't really use him a whole bunch. And he also, I mean, unless he's coming back to the ball, you always got to worry about him dropping it. So I think that kind of has led to him getting less targets as well.
The thing about Gabe Davis, and I've said this a few times, he is a home run hitter, but it also means you're going to endure some strikeouts too when that happens. And I think that's sort of who Gabe Davis is. I feel like all the offseason talk about Gabe Davis, no matter what side of the argument you fell on, you were right. You know, he does have the potential to have huge games. He also has the potential to disappear and leave you wanting more. So everybody can take a collective victory lap because you were right on some point about Gabe Davis. Hopefully that made you feel better about some of the mistakes. Probably didn't, especially if you took an L. But we tried. Anyway, we got more to talk about. We're going to do a round of cap or no cap about some things that maybe we're a little bit worried about and whether or not we actually think they are true. And we'll figure out which cap is and no cap is. We'll try to figure that out during the break. Bear with us on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Your game on the go wherever you are. This is how you football. With NFL Plus, watch live, local, and primetime games on mobile and listen to live game audio now through Super Bowl 57. Sign up for the rest of the season with a special offer of $19.99. We're going to play cap or no cap here on the show. I'm going to read a phrase. We're going to decide whether that phrase is a lie, aka cap, or if it is true, aka no cap. And we're going to wear regular size caps, not big ones, when we talk about it here on the streaming show. So let's start in San Francisco. Christian McCaffrey. CMC is no longer a top 5 running back. Is that cap or no cap?
That's no cap for me. I want it to be true because Christian McCaffrey hasn't been the same player on the 49ers outside of that one huge game that he has been on the Carolina Panthers. But my issue is finding 5 running backs that I would take over McCaffrey the rest of the year. Like, give me Eckler, give me Henry, and then it becomes a discussion. Like, would I rather Saquon or CMC? That's really close. Stevenson, Chubb, there's Josh Jacobs. Like, there's other guys that are in that conversation, but I can't firmly today at least say, like, no, there's a definitive 5 running backs I'll take over CMC.
He is still a top 5 running back for me. He is still a top 5 fantasy running back. So I guess that makes it cap, right? It's
yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I got it wrong.
That's all right.
Cap.
Yeah, it's cap. It's cap. He is still a top 5 running back. Now, I think the conversation here is that Christian McCaffrey's not the guy you drafted at the start of the year, right? When he was in Carolina, he was getting 85% of the snaps. So far in San Francisco, that number has dropped to 58%. That's a huge drop in terms of how he's being used. His touches are down. He's about 14 touches per game since he came to San Francisco. And it's because they have an offense with a whole lot more weapons, right? They can get it to Debo. They can get it to Ayuk. They can get it to Kittle. I know Elijah Mitchell got hurt on Sunday, but he was another guy that they were using. So in terms of his usage, yeah, he's not going to be that guy. So he's gone from being an elite, like head and shoulders above everybody else running back to a guy who's above average and still pretty good, just not necessarily a straight up league winner like you thought you were getting in the first 2 or 3 picks of your draft. So I still think he's a top 5 running back because of what you said. Like, I don't know that there are 5 guys that I want ahead of Christian McCaffrey, but he's not just running away with things in terms of the scoring week to week. Let's stay in San Francisco though. Deebo Samuel is droppable. Is that cap or no cap?
That's cap.
Yeah.
Look, I'm willing to say that Deebo Samuel is a bust this year. If you want to say,
I'll put the cap on now.
Look, we both got the same F cap.
Yeah, man. We're putting on the cap.
He's not the guy that you drafted him to be, and he is not going to be. So I understand that he's been frustrating. I don't even think he is a weekly must-start option anymore. But he's not droppable. Like, he reminded us last week of the upside that he brings when he dropped 22 fantasy points. And then this week, he gets the Dolphins, who also give up a ton of yak, and we know that those are matchups that Deebo can thrive in. So again, I think he's more of a matchup play the rest of the year. He's not a must-start option, but I'm not dropping him.
Brandon Ayuk has turned out to be the top receiver on that team this year, which is a little bit surprising. The other part of it, though, is, as I mentioned, Elijah Mitchell got hurt, possibly going on IR, which means he's going to be out for a while. Deebo Samuel maybe picking up some of those carries again too, so maybe he's getting some extra touches somewhere along the way. So I get it if you have a weekly debate over whether or not you're starting Deebo. You're not dropping Deebo. Let's just do away with that. DeAndre Swift. We're not asking if he's droppable because I don't think running backs. It's hard to drop a running back. But DeAndre Swift is not a starter anymore. Cap or no cap?
No cap.
No cap.
I mean,
we're not capping.
Yeah, he doesn't start for his own team. He probably shouldn't start for your fantasy team right now. Last week, Swift played 32% of the snaps. I believe that's the most he's played in the last month. He still saw just 5 carries, 8 targets. That salvaged his day, but that's not reliable week to week because that was a game where the Lions were playing from behind for much, and it was just a matchup thing. Like, the Bills have struggled against running backs. Let's put the ball into DeAndre Swift's hands. He's sitting most games this past month between 8 and 12 fantasy points, and that's with having a touchdown in 3 of them. If he doesn't get you that touchdown, you're probably looking at less than 5 fantasy points. I don't want that player in my starting lineup.
It has been nice that the Lions are using him a little bit more close to the goal line, even though it's still Jamal Williams territory. But he's just been so volatile, and the floor has been so low that it is hard to make a case for starting him. But, yeah, like I said, you're holding on to him just because you need running backs, and if something happens to Jamal Williams, then Swift is thrust back in a big-time role, but his usage has dropped so significantly that I don't trust starting him in my lineup. Dameon Pierce was the new hotness for a while this season. The last couple of weeks have not been good. So does that mean Dameon Pierce is droppable, cap or no cap? Yeah.
Cap.
Yeah, we're capping.
I can't drop a running back that gets 80% of his team's work out of the backfield, especially not one who looked as well as Dameon Pierce did earlier in the season. And I know last week I was on the show saying, like, he's had a really tough schedule. The Dolphins have been good against the running game as well. In the past month, or in the past 5 weeks, he's played 4 teams in the bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to running backs. This week, he gets the Cleveland Browns, who outside of the Texans have been the worst unit at stopping running backs. Not only am I not dropping Dameon Pierce, I'm willing to give him one more shot next week in my starting lineup.
Everything you said is how I feel right now about Dameon Pierce. Like, I look at him, I'm like, I can't start this dude, but I can't drop him because he's getting so many snaps there in Houston, and the matchup next week is so good. The last thing I want to do is put him back out on the waiver wire, have somebody scoop him up, and then have at least a quality running back for the next few weeks. So it's frustrating. I endorse putting him on the bench if you have better options, but you're not putting him back in the waiver wire pool. Okay, let's get to something more positive. Christian Kirk is a must start for the rest of the season. A must start for the rest of the season, cap or no cap.
I'm leaving that cap right there where it is. I think this is true. Christian Kirk right now on this season, I think if you ask people where he ranks amongst wide receivers, they would be surprised to learn that he is a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this season. And not only is he top 10, he's giving you over 15 fantasy points per game. He gets around a quarter of the targets, if not more, every week. And I know yesterday 8.1 fantasy points was a disappointment, but when you're giving most weeks over 15, 8.1 is a pretty solid floor.
I really wanted to say cap on this. I did, but I think because of that, I think it is no cap. And I remind myself of the volatility of wide receivers, right? That sure, Justin Jefferson is great, and he's got that really safe, really high floor. There's only one Justin Jefferson. And now that we've lost Cooper Kupp for who knows how long, that consistency, you're just not going to find it at wide receiver. And Christian Kirk is sort of giving you that. And I know we're not necessarily celebrating him across fantasy Twitter like we are some other wide receivers, but yeah, maybe it is no cap. Maybe he really is a must start for the rest of the season. I was uncertain about that, and I kind of talked myself into it. So maybe not as exciting as Christian Kirk is Treylon Burks, who the last couple of weeks starting to make plays for Tennessee. So cap or no cap, Treylon Burks is a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season.
I don't want to do it, but I'm going to say cap.
Oh, I'm going to say no cap. I'm not putting the cap on.
No, we're not putting it on. I think there's a ton of upside here with Treylon Burks. He's looking really good as of late. I'm not sure I want to fully trust Tannehill in this offense yet. I think he has the upside to be wide receiver 2 the rest of the way. I think I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with him as a 3 or a flex, but the last couple of weeks, he's done a lot of his damage on the long ball. It's great that they have someone now that can do that. I just don't know if I trust this offense to throw it every week. And yesterday, his touchdown was a fumble recovery. That's a little fluky. But there's definitely a lot of upside with Burks.
I'm saying no cap. I would like to see him run more routes. I'd like to see him play more snaps than he has. But he's the guy who right now is earning targets. He's getting open. He's getting those looks. And you can't say that about Robert Woods right now. You can't really say that about Nick Westbrook-Ikhine right now. You know, they're cycling through a myriad of tight ends at this point. So Burks sort of looks like that guy in the Tennessee offense. And yes, I get it. That offense is always going to run through Derrick Henry as long as he's healthy. They're going to be run-based. They're not going to throw it a lot. But Burks looks like he's earning his opportunities there and is going to get more. So I think he's a wide receiver 2. Now, mind you, he's on the lower end of the wide receiver 2 spectrum. He'll probably dip into wide receiver 3 territory at some point. But I think more often than not, you're going to get wide receiver 2 numbers out of Treylon Burks. And he is widely available. We'll get to waiver wire in a little bit. He is widely available in NFL.com. He should not be. Go, even if you're not starting him, go pick him up at least to have him on your roster and have that option going into the fantasy playoffs. Speaking of the waiver wire, we will turn our attention to that coming up after the break. That's next on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Time for Refresh Your Lineup, presented by Subway. Taking a look at the top waiver wire targets for Week 13. Mike, who do you have?
Patrick Claybon would love that a couple of New York quarterbacks start the list with Daniel Jones and Mike White. Jordan Love there as well because he has a good matchup in case he starts next week. Some running backs, Gus Edwards, who was the lead runner again for the Ravens and is widely available. Kyren Williams, just because someone's got to get the ball there. Samaje Perine in case Joe Mixon misses more time. Zonovan Knight, who we spoke about earlier, I think he is worth picking up, as is Ty Johnson in deeper leagues for the Jets. And then some pass catchers. Zay Jones tops the list for me, followed by Treylon Burks, a couple of guys that we've spent a lot of time talking about today. Darius Slayton, do not forget about him and what he did on Thanksgiving. Chase Claypool, because he's the new number 1 in Chicago. And Elijah Moore, because Mike White is reviving careers in New York. Michael Gallup and
Olamide
Zaccheaus. I was going to butcher that name. I knew it. To finish out the receivers. And then David Njoku and Juwan Johnson. I know Johnson disappointed this week, but hey, he's still been more good than bad.
He also did get an end zone target for what it's worth. It was knocked away, so they are looking for him in the end zone. This is the life of dealing with streaming tight ends. It's just going to happen there. By the way, if you want any more in-depth analysis on some of these waiver wire picks and more, go check out Matt Okada's weekly column at NFL.com/waiver wire. Let's talk about a couple of these Jets, though, because you mentioned Mike White on the list, and it's not a sexy name, but the Jets were way more productive with him yesterday against the Chicago Bears than they had been previously with Zach Wilson. And so, what, you're thinking 2 QB leagues, super flex leagues, White has some value now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he dropped 24.8 fantasy points, thrown for 315 and 3. And this is the second time in like 4 starts that he's put up numbers like this. And he even said himself after the game, he was like, I don't know if I'm the starter again next week. It's like, no, Mike.
No, you're the starter.
You're the starter. It's safe to say. And the Jets, next week they get the Vikings. That's not a terrible matchup. The Bills after that, then the Lions, then the Jaguars, then the Seahawks. Like, there are some favorable matchups that if you're making the playoffs and maybe been streaming quarterbacks, Mike White can help you some weeks.
So Mike White steps in, plays very well in place of Zach Wilson. And Elijah Moore has a couple of catches, 61 yards. After the game, I know he was doing a post-game interview, and a bunch of his teammates were coming by saying, free Elijah, E is free, like all these things. His teammates were super happy for him. The production is great, 14 fantasy points. The thing that worries me, though, Mike, he only had 2 targets. I think he only played like 35% of the snaps, so the snap share is still really low, but I guess there's reason for optimism after what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, Moore is not the kind of player to pick up and plug into your starting lineup right away, but he's just one of those guys that, like, there's upside here, and if you have a roster spot on your bench that you could take a wait-and-see approach, he's a fine upside shot worth taking because we know from last year and what we saw yesterday that Mike White likes to target his slot receivers. Elijah Moore is going to be his lead slot guy, and I love that his 2 catches, one was a touchdown, one was a 40-yard catch. Like, there's a lot of potential here with Elijah Moore. We know that. We just need to get him the ball more. And if Mike White can do that, I think there's upside down the road.
Let's hope that this is the start of something good for a guy who really has just sort of languished in obscurity pretty much all season long. Olamide Zaccheaus, I don't want to say he's the Falcons receiver that you have to have because I don't think that such a thing exists in 2022. But there does seem to be some upside here because this isn't the first time he's gone out and had a good game. And shout out to Adam Rank, who I think had Zaccheaus as one of his 5 guarantees on Fantasy Live. But I guess if we're checking on Falcons pass catchers, Zaccheaus seems like a dude that we should at least pay attention to, right?
Yeah, we know the floor is very low here, but this was the first game without Kyle Pitts, and the thought was like Drake London would get more involved, but then who else will be the one that steps up in this passing attack? And Drake London really wasn't all that more involved. He had just 4 targets. Zaccheaus had 8, led the way. And what I like about Zaccheaus is he's the receiver that they like taking their downfield shots with. I think they should try more with Drake London because we know he could win downfield, but as long as they're using Zaccheaus in that role, there's some he's a deeper league guy for sure, but there's some upside here.
So Zaccheaus getting some opportunities. The moment we all start to buy into him is when Kadarius Hodge comes to life in Atlanta because that's just how things work there. Gus Edwards, I know it wasn't a great game for him yesterday. He lost a fumble. The Ravens struggled to run the football. 9.2 fantasy points for Gus Edwards. Not a great day, but still a run-heavy offense, and he's still the guy who right now is the lead running back. So I feel like that alone, it's sort of like we talked about Dameon Pierce, right? It's hard to completely go away from Pierce. Same thing with Edwards. He's just going to get opportunity in Baltimore.
Yeah, 52% of the snaps yesterday. He had 16 carries. The other running backs on the team combined for 3. He had 1 target. The other 2 running backs combined had 1 target. So, like, all of the production is going towards Gus Edwards. I know he struggled on the ground yesterday to turn it into a whole lot. That could be just who he is at this point right now, but when we're talking about a running back getting that much work, I think you want him on your roster, especially because Edwards does have a track record of success, and the Ravens' run game is one that, at the very least, you want some exposure to.
You want some exposure to it, so I feel like Gus Edwards should be on rosters. You can debate, depending on who you have, whether or not you're starting him, but at least go pick him up. If you're going to pick people up, that means you're probably saying goodbye to somebody, so who's somebody that can be put back in the pool now?
Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt just this past week only had 5 carries. He's not really been used in the passing game a whole lot. Now we're talking about Deshaun Watson coming back, which leads me to think over time the Browns might get more pass happy than they have been with Jacoby Brissett. But either way, I don't expect a bunch of dump off passes to the running back. That's what Kareem Hunt, that's how he's made, do the last couple of years with Baker Mayfield. You take that away, then Marcus, he is the Texans next week. and I was like, I can tell people to start him with 0% confidence, and if I can't tell people to start you against the Texans, you're not worth rostering.
Yeah, I don't know where it fell apart for Kareem Hunt this year, because he's not getting the targets, he's not getting the carries. He really is very much a, hey, Nick Chubb's run really hard. He just needs to take a breather for a minute. Like, Kareem, now you get to play, and there's just no fantasy value in that.
The only way I would want to roster Hunt is if I have Nick Chubb.
That's it, and that's basically pretty much as a handcuff at this point. That's all. Cam Akers can go back to the waiver wire. And I feel like we've said this a bit, but I feel like we all were off Cam Akers because we just didn't know what to expect. Then the Rams went out and released Darrell Henderson, so everybody went back to Cam Akers thinking, well, hey, man, this is going to mean more opportunities. And then Kyron Williams came in and got most of the snaps and most of the touches there. The Rams' offense is a mess. In reality, you probably don't want any parts of it. Like, I don't know that Kyron Williams is a great pickup or a great add, but I think at this point we can safely say that Cam Akers ain't it. 3.7 points yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Rams are going to be playing from behind pretty much the rest of the season, I would imagine. So not a lot of opportunities for Akers to run the football. He's not really involved in the passing game. He right now is rostered in, I think, 54%, I believe, of NFL.com leagues. That was at least as of Sunday evening. We can just say goodbye at this point. There's no reason to keep holding on to Cam Akers. That dream is dead for 2022. The dream might be alive for some other folks, though, and in terms of their Madden rating. At least we hope the dream is alive, and we're going to try and promote those dreams as much as we can coming up next on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Time for our Madden Movers, the chance for us to give some love to guys we didn't really get to in the show, and we think they deserve a boost from EA Sports and the Madden games. So who deserves to be moving on up this week?
Ramondre Stevenson, who right now is an 80 overall. He dropped over 20 fantasy points. It's his third time this year having 19.5 fantasy points or more in a game without a touchdown. That is how you know you are an elite fantasy asset, and that is how you should get a Madden bump. Since like week 8, he leads running backs in targets, catches, receiving yards, all of that.
So Ramondre played on Thanksgiving. Also, Isaiah McKenzie played on Thanksgiving and had a really big game there. And I know that Haley was frustrated about Gabe Davis. Well, she can sort of thank or blame Isaiah McKenzie for Gabe Davis's lack of production, because he had 6 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown, 22 fantasy points. And he has been inconsistent. That's not a surprise. He's been sort of who we thought he would be, but had a nice big blow-up game against the Lions on Thanksgiving to help the Bills get a win. And hopefully he can help your Madden squad if he gets boosted a little bit this week. Who else deserves a Madden bump?
James Conner, who at 78 overall, I thought was just too low, especially considering what he did this past week. 25 carries, $120 on the ground. Then he caught all 3 of his targets for 20 yards and a touchdown. I know he's missed time this year due to injury, but this is a guy who was a league winner last year. He scored 18 touchdowns. I think he's just a reliable weekly RB2 that you could start and know that he has RB1 upside each week. He's a 78 overall. I feel like he should at least be in the 80s.
I think with his usage, he might be an RB1 the rest of the way. Kind of a low end there, but I do like him a lot the rest of the way. Mine is Josh Oliver, my last one here. Not because he's going to have some kind of long-lasting upside on a team that has Mark Andrews, but it was a Josh Oliver game against the Jaguars, and he scored a touchdown, 4 for 76 and a touch, 17.6 fantasy points. He's a 68 overall, so maybe we get him a little bit closer to 70, maybe just a notch or so. That would be kind of nice if we could do that. So Josh Oliver, congrats on having your big game this week. Of course, you can always check us out in your podcast feed. You can see us live on the NFL Fast channels, the Fantasy app, and YouTube.com/NFL Fantasy Football. So be sure to check us out there. In the meantime, that is it. We are done. We appreciate you hanging out with the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Subway. Try the Subway Series menu, your pick of 12 irresistible subs. You know the drill. Tell 2 friends to tell 2 friends. Rate, review, and remember, maybe you're not an early bird or a night owl. Maybe you're just a permanently exhausted pigeon. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on Wednesday.